in Peru, they will be able to produce all of these things on their own. And so I think it's significant in that it's a kind of an encapsulation of how the K defense sector is evolving.
Yes, this is the second largest sales of K2 tanks after Poland case. And after Poland, we can call it as another home run, which will bring in a series of K2 tank sales in South America.
Medios coreanos confirman que Perú acaba de cerrar el mayor acuerdo militar de su historia con Corea del Sur. 54 tanques K2 con traspaso tecnológico, incluido entrenamiento y producción local hasta 2040.
South Korea recently inked a preliminary agreement with Peru for the sale of its military land vehicles. For more on this defense market development, I have Stephen Boric with Japanese weekly news magazine Nikkei Asia here in the studio. Stephen, welcome back.
Thank you.
I also have Professor Kim Jun-mo at Konkuk University joining this session virtually. Professor Kim, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
My pleasure.
Right, we shall start here in the studio. Stephen, let's begin with details about this preliminary deal for the sale of South Korea's military land vehicles to Peru.
So it's a total of 195 units, and among those are 54 K2 tanks and 141 wheeled armor vehicles. I would say the significance of this is that it represents South Korean defense makers. I believe it's Hyundai Rotem and STX that are involved in this, reaching out to and scoring a deal in a new part of the world. So in recent years, since the start of the Russian war in Ukraine, there's been a lot of inroads by the K defense sector in striking deals with Poland and with other countries in Eastern Europe who are looking to countries that are kind of in Russia's orbit, that are looking to buttress their own defenses, that are looking to quickly boost their military capabilities to ward off any kind of regional uncertainty. But as far as I know, this is the first kind of major deal that's been announced between South Korea and a country in Latin America. And according to reports, if this deal is officially sealed, it would mark the beginning, the first ever, the biggest ever deal between South Korean defense makers and a country in that part of the world. So it represents a continued evolution of the K defense sector.
Right, and I understand this particular deal, Stephen, includes two key parts. Could you walk us through them?
Yeah, it's two parts of a kind of bigger process, and the timeline that we're dealing with is next year to the year 2040. And just for people who are watching, to me, the kind of interesting takeaway is that it's a long process of preparing for local production. So this is something that I think is kind of new to Korean defense makers. They tend to make a lot of their own stuff in-house, but I think in my understanding is that in recent years, as their business has increased, they have had to enter into a new kind of arrangement where they are preparing local companies to be able to produce this stuff for themselves. And so in this particular case, phase one goes from next year until 2028. And this involves the delivery of vehicles and the kind of training by the South Korean firms of local staff to be able to maintain and repair these things on their own. And then the second phase of the agreement goes from 2029 to 2040. And that's when the idea is that in Peru, they will be able to produce all of these things on their own. And so I think it's significant in that it's a kind of an encapsulation of how the K defense sector is evolving. I believe K companies have entered into similar agreements in Romania and other countries. But as I said before, this is a kind of illustration of how these K defense companies are looking to expand and looking to keep things going as the global security landscape evolves.
Right then, speaking within your capacity as a scholar, Professor Kim, what more can you tell us about the significance of this latest deal with Peru for South Korea?
Yes, this is the second largest sales of K2 tanks after Poland case. And after Poland, we can call it as another home run, which will bring in a series of K2 tank sales in South America, the Middle East, and possibly in Europe. For example, K9 has been the world's best seller Hoicher by taking about 60% of international market. K2 tank has been a dark horse so far, but with the sales, we can claim that K2 tank is one of the three major main battle tanks in the international market. So that's one significance. Second significance would be this is a successful arms export case packaged with industrial cooperation.
The Peruvian military had been dealing with some aging equipment and kind of aging facilities, and there was just a need to bring in some new and more adept equipment. And South Korea, for the reasons that Professor just laid out, South Korea was an apt partner due to things like compatibility, value for money, and speed of delivery. So I also just would think that just from what I know about Peru and kind of Latin America more generally, this is a region of the world with complicated topography, where there's a history of land combat, of armed guerrilla groups, of insurgencies. I know in Peru in particular, there's the Shining Path, and there's some other history of kind of renegade conflict between organized forces and less organized groups in kind of a challenging landscape. So I think that's probably a factor. And moving forward, I would also just say that, you know, I've also read about Peru kind of more branching out kind of more generally and seeking a wider range of partners. This is an area of the part of the world that like the U.S. has typically dominated, especially from a defense perspective. Peru will host the APEC meeting, I believe it's in the coming years, and so they have a kind of innate need to bolster their security in advance of that. But it seems to me like it's the kind of market that the South Korean firms would target as having pressing security needs and being kind of, at least in terms of its defense cooperation, kind of open to new partnerships, not like specifically locked into a traditional alliance or a traditional commercial structure with any one partner. So it seems like it has the potential for a win-win arrangement.
Este acuerdo no solo moderniza al ejército del Perú, sino que coloca al país en el radar estratégico de Corea del Sur y de toda la región. ¿Crees que Perú hizo una buena compra? Déjalo en los comentarios. Ahora queremos leerte a ti. ¿Estás de acuerdo con la opinión? Comenta si te interesa el análisis serio sobre el país. Suscríbete a Perú Radar y apoya el canal con un like.